Hello everyone, Shintobin here discussing some more Warhammer combat cards. Continuing this series talking about the best and worst cards in the game, and in this one we're going to be looking at the Necron faction, which has 57 bodyguards at the moment. First of all, looking at the Warlords. Hands down the best Necron Warlord is Trazen the Infinite. His special rule, just being able to capture up to 3 enemy cards. They are the highest cost cards on the enemy side, so it is a little bit trickier in some situations, but very powerful. The Corpse Lord is surprisingly strong at the moment. It is the cheapest Necron Warlord, so you can include a lot of points worth of bodyguards. And it actually has some decent healing. It hits pretty hard, it heals itself, so yeah, all around just a pretty nice Warlord. The Psychomancer is the best against Psychic decks. Generally, you do want to run cards with only one attack type, but yeah, it's got a solid special rule. Nemzor Zondrek, also decent special rule. You get an extra bodyguard in the deck with him. The other 3 at the bottom are not so great though. Othakar, I mean, they've tried to buff him, but he still doesn't really feel that strong. Imhotep, pretty expensive warlord with a lackluster ability. And then the Silent King, special rule is pretty decent, but 110 points just for the Warlord means you hardly have anything left for the bodyguards, so it's not going to do so well in ranked. Looking at the ranged bodyguards, in first place I put the Doomsday Arc, which at level 9 unlocks a Precision Shot in addition to Barrage, which is a deadly combo. And yeah, the thing can really dish out the damage, has a nice health pool as well. The Tesseract Arc is one that starts off weak, but as a legendary gets very strong later on, and just a huge amount of health on that, as well as damage output. Both of those only have one attack type, so they combo well with certain Necron Warlords. The Royal Warden is your go-to guy for if you need Inspiring Presence for a ranged deck, and after a few buffs he is a very cost-effective card. Then we got the Tombblade Scout. It's a common, but it actually has surprisingly good stats. It doesn't look so good here next to all these other cards at max level, but this is one card that is just really strong even at lower levels, so I recommend using it. And then the Hexmark Destroyer I have in 5th place here. This one can be a little finicky to use because it can be kind of tricky choosing what to target with it, depending on when it shows up in your hand, but it does do a good amount of damage, and it is helpful to have target acquired with Trazen, I think. Moving on to melee, it's pretty easy. The top 2 choices here, those 2 legendaries are extremely valuable. We got, the Overlord with shields, just so durable, and also capable of dealing a lot of damage. Then we got Enrakir the Traveler, just massive damage output, and also buffing your next melee attack after he deploys. Oricon the Diviner is also quite nice. He was a pretty bad card for a while, but then they just gave him a massive increase to his damage output and health, and he's a healer, and only 23 points, so definitely good for a melee deck. After those 3, though, your choices start to get less amazing. So I've just thrown the Lich card in there with shields just for the cost. It's a nice durable card that can hit decently hard. And then the Translocation Shroud Overlord is a newer card, and it overlaps in role with, the other Overlord over there, which is a lot better. But this one, it's a decent card as well. Then we've got what I've called hybrid cards, which have both the powerful melee and ranged attack. And so in first place, I mean, the Transcendent, this thing is just so strong. The amount of damage that thing can deal is crazy, and I love using it. The Monolith I do not have at a high enough level to use, but at max level that thing is extremely valuable. I mean, just look how much health that thing has, plus the Medicae. And then it has Big Game Hunter on that really powerful ranged attack, and a surprisingly strong melee attack as well, so another very strong centerpiece card. The Command Barge is, I think, a little bit on the weak side at the lower levels, but at max level, with 4 shields, it's just really hard to take down and has pretty good damage output. The 4th and 5th places are nowhere near as good as the top 3, but we got the Plasmancer, which just does a pretty good amount of damage for its cost. And then Illuminor Xeris, one of many cards with Medicae, but he also does a fair bit of damage. And then we've got support cards, so these are mostly just healers or cards with taunt. So in the first place is 16-point Cryptek, is the cheapest option for Medicae after the 4-point Plasma Sight, which I have in third place there. The Ghost Arc is a newer card. Haven't really used it yet, but at a mid-range, the thing deals a pretty good amount of damage and also has a really high health pool, good for protecting your cards for 1 or 2 turns even. The Night Scythe is 11 points more expensive, but that also just has a huge amount of health, and I typically don't run cards with taunt that are that expensive, but I found the Night Scythe to actually be pretty worth its cost. And if you don't have that many points to dedicate to a support card like that, you can just go with the 8-point Cryptothrall, which does the same thing for a lot cheaper. And then we've got a number of cards that are just not very good. I actually don't really like the majority of the cheap. I think they're all kind of trash, and I only put them in there if I just have extra points to fill up. The Praetorians with Regeneration, really not that great either, don't use them. The Canoptek Wraith with Deathblow just doesn't do very much damage. The Praetorian Stalker with Inspiring Presence, I did use this once upon a time, a long time ago, but it's just been left behind in recent times. And then the Tomb Sentinel with Barrage, this is a newer card, but yeah, it's just nowhere near as good as the other cards of the same point cost. So that's a quick rundown of the best and worst of the Necron arsenal. Let me know if you disagree about any of the cards and which of the Necrons is your favorite. But that's it for this one. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.